Hey, hi. While I was editing the rest of the podcast, you guys absolutely smashed past the 500 subscribers mark to Along the Lines. So, what does that mean? That means that if you watch until the end of the episode, you can find out how to win something from my stash, and you can find out exactly what you could win. So, enjoy the show, and see you later. Hello and welcome to Along the Lines, my podcast about knitting, crafts and lovely fluffy things. I'm Vero and today I have a guest, Gemma.
Yay!
It's Friday night and we're having a lovely little relaxed evening with prosecco, and we'll be chatting about knitting and dyeing and various projects that we've had, and I'm sure we'll have some fun stuff to show you. I think we should.
Absolutely. We shall. And can I just take this opportunity to say thank you very much for having me as your first guest. I'm super excited to be here, and I couldn't imagine anyone else. I'd rather spend an evening with talking about knitting. So
Fantastic! That's what Friday nights are for. Casting on new projects, chatting about knitting, and drinking prosecco. Can I do this without taking a window out?
yeah, of course you can.
Or a glass,
or a cat.
Yeah. We've locked the cats out of the room because they were trying very hard to get involved. Woo! Woo! All right.
Lovely. Well,
We're good. Cheers.
cheers.
Here's to awesome knitting projects.
Absolutely.
So, for some fun, we've brought some of the dyeing that we did. How long ago was that?
I think it must be in February or March time.
Yeah. So a few months ago, we had, just here in the kitchen, nothing fancy, a little bit of an experiment where we wanted to try dyeing our own yarn. And we had, did we work out in total? We had a pretty decent
We
quantity.
had a lot of yarn to dye, and this was the first time that I've ever dyed anything, so it was a real experience for me.
Yeah, I think we ended up with a couple of kilos hanging on the washing line at the end of the day.
So my arms have never had such a good workout.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I think of all the hand dyers, and these people must be working so hard. It's a very physical job.
It was, and all the walking around, because you had your stepper on, didn't you?
Yeah. I think by lunchtime it buzzed for 10,000 steps. So yeah, I think that was just such good fun, and we've gathered some of the stuff that we dyed. So we did some sock, or is that sock white or is that DK? I think that's probably DK. So originally I planned to do 6 skeins of the same thing, but I obviously got distracted halfway through, so I did 3 skeins in one colour and 3 skeins in another. Did some Aran weight for some thicker kind of winter gifts, the kind of thing that you want to knit a little bit quicker. And was that
It is
bulky
Aran
or
weight as well.
Aran weight as well?
Yep.
But really, really soft and lovely.
Some alpaca as well that
Yeah.
we did,
Oh,
which was a dip dye one.
Yeah.
If you can.
So it was really good fun. We did a mix of kettle dyed, where the yarn goes into a big pot with a lot of water and it feels like you're making a giant soup. Pour all the dye in, put the yarn in, and then the amazing thing happens where the water goes back to clear.
Yeah, I can get my head around that. That was
It's so strange. You just make this really dark water, and all of a sudden you take the yarn out and the water's clear again. And it's all gone.
amazing.
When it works as planned.
Well, yeah.
May have had a couple of experiments where we were a little bit too generous on the dye and ended up with...
Oh yeah, I think this was the leftovers of one, wasn't it?
Yeah, so was that the leftover of
yes, that
Yeah.
was the leftover of this one. So then we poured the rest of the water that was in this one into some chip and dip trays, and then just laid the yarn over it, and then had like the darker colour in, I think 2, and then the lighter colour, and just kind of...
Yeah.
So it's very subtle, the colour changes, but...
And this one's quite a nice kind of gradient.
I'm really pleased with that, but I have no idea what I'm going to make out of it.
It's so soft. It's pure alpaca. I might steal it.
No problem.
We do have a habit of trying to steal each other's projects.
Just kind of snapping it away. You'll never know.
And we came up with some rather brilliant names as well for some of them. So I think this has to be my favourite of all times.
Yeah, it was. The colour I envisioned was kind of like a bit more of a greeny rather than a yellowy green. But we
it's a bit difficult when you're not that experienced. It can be slightly tricky to get exactly the colour you imagine. Usually I get something that's a million miles from what I'd imagined, but that one was christened.
This is cat yak.
Because it looks rather like yes. So that was cat yak.
Cat yak.
And these were meant to be a kind of slightly graceful, dusky pink. And I nicknamed it Garbage Juice because it's just a bit of a dirty, pinky, grey.
It's kind of dusky. You can get away with that, I think.
Honestly, hand dyers, I respect you very much because you actually get, well, I think you get what you're expecting. What I got was really not what I expected. Yes. And some of the mishaps that happen with dyeing, this one I love the colour. I'm very happy. I'm very happy with the colour, but it's kind of hard to see. But I've got this little white patch where the string was just tied much too tight around it, and the effect it had was a little bit like when you do 80s style tie-dyeing and you take a t-shirt and you put elastics very tightly so that these sections don't get dyed. Well, the dye went beautifully around everything else, but for those particular bits that were tied by the yarn seller, which I should have taken out, meant that those sections were completely white because the dye just couldn't quite squeeze its way in. So
that's quite an interesting thing though. I think maybe next time we should actually deliberately do some tie-dyes and just see what happens.
That's a good idea. And in fact, I think this one was a little bit of a... Oh, well, yeah, this is another one that needs to go back through.
Because that is actually a really nice effect, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you
had a bit more
frequent throughout or slightly more subdued relative to the yarn, I think it would work. But this one's got kind of bluey purples and then slightly more kind of grapey colours. So, yeah, this is probably going to go back in the dye bath a third or fourth time.
Third time lucky.
Yeah, eventually we'll get there.
So yeah, now we just need to decide what to make with the...
Yeah, my stash went up by 1.3 kilos in one day.
Yeah, mine too.
Don't ever get into dyeing. So the dyeing was done using acid dyes, so landscape dyes, and as I said, most of it was kettle dyed, so big pot, pop the yarn in, but then you did, was it this one, through the chip and dip? So
the cashmere was through the chip and dip.
Cashmere is so soft.
I think you can see the colour changes really because they are really subtle, but they're kind of brown and grey.
That chip and dip technique is really truly something special. You take one of those chip trays with multiple. You can see you can still see
kind of like that, isn't it? And then you just put the different ends
into the different little trays, and then you can fill each tray with either a gradient or with just completely random colours, and it gives you that nice kind of gradient, especially if the yarn's wet and the colour wicks up through from one to the other.
Yeah, because it kind of merges. Yeah. I think next time I do it, I'll use a lot stronger colour, so you can actually see the colour changes go through.
But then I love the fact that it's kind of slightly beigey to slightly silvery grey. Yeah,
I mean, it's gorgeous. But the only other problem I've got is it's not very much of it at all, so I just don't know what to make with it. I think I might have enough for a hat maybe, or a small cowl, but...
Something luxurious and cozy.
It's so soft.
Yeah.
I could just wear it like that. Walk around all day just having it.
Seems to be a new fashion thing where we just wear who needs to knit when you can just wear it like that?
It's like a comfort blanket, isn't it? It's just
this year's fashion.
Little cloud. So yeah, I need to get my knit on, I think, and actually start knitting up some of this wonderful stuff that we dyed.
But then you have been doing some pretty impressive knitting lately, I think. I think should we show your absolute amazing project? So what is it? It's City and Guilds course.
Yeah, so I'm doing a City and Guilds course in hand knit textiles. I'm currently on module 5 of 12, and it has taken me a long time, just because I get very easily distracted. Give me a shiny new project and I'm all over it, and then it's like, oh yeah, I really should do some more of my coursework.
So what kind of stuff have the modules entailed so far?
It's really interesting. So like the first one, we learn all about different cast on and cast off techniques, which was an eye-opener for me because I've only ever used one cast on and cast off.
I'll have to pick your brains because I pretty much only know 1 or 2 cast offs.
Yeah, same here. So I didn't realise there's this like whole arena of different cast off which you can use. So like some are more stretchy than others and some are quite tight, and then you've got the picot bind off, and there's a lot of stuff to learn. So that was great. We also did selvages.
Cool.
We've done different kind of stitch patterns, so knit and purl stitch patterns, cable patterns, all sorts. And then there's also the design element of it, which I really enjoy. So it's like you look at, you take a design source, say like you look at lines, and then you have to kind of like design a knitting pattern based on your design source. So that's been quite fun. So we've done lines, and module 4 was all about colour as well. So you looked at like colour relationships, and you did like the theory behind it. So you looked at the colour wheel and different tones and things like that. So it's really interesting. But as I say, I need to get my like head down and actually crack on and do it.
So what kind of stuff do you have ahead? That must be...
So module
if
5
you're already up to this level, I mean, it must be like boss mode by the time you get to the top.
I don't actually know what the other modules entail, so it's quite fun. Module 5 so far, we've done things like necklines and buttonholes, and then we've had to design our own fashion accessory. So we've had to take a visual source and then kind of do a design as if you got it from a client. Basically get your design, work out what it's going to look like, and then make
like a brief.
So you do it that way. But so it's been quite fun, and so my latest...
I just love... This is a project, so I saw it the first time as a little spreadsheet.
Yeah, I took it to knit night, and this was like in the first stages of me trying to get my head around, because I knew in my head exactly what I wanted to do, but I hadn't quite figured out like the logistics of how I was going to do it and the maths behind it.
And then you were telling me how many different balls were involved, and it started to get a little bit extreme, and I think it's time we show give me one end.
So this is the final design that I do.
The other end's over here.
And it's based on a petticoat in the Victorian and Albert Museum, which is kind of like scalloped.
And it's just so gorgeous. I love the lace, and I love that colour, I love that bit, and I love the fact that you can probably wrap it around yourself 17 times.
Yeah. But yeah, this has been my ongoing project for quite a while.
Yeah.
So you can see
so how many balls did you end up with?
I think it was about 11 different balls, because it's all done in intarsia. So you have
which to me is magic. So I'm amazed. It's so tidy.
Knit about 3 rows, and I'd have to stop and kind of like reposition all the balls and untangle them. So
that's a full dining table type project.
Oh, it was, yes, definitely. Yeah. And woe betide any cat that decided to jump on the table. Start batting things around.
Yeah.
You know. I was very glad to finally cast that one off, I have to say, because it seemed like it was
How long did the cast off take? Or was it done
I took it on holiday, and I did it over a course of a couple of evenings. I just sat there, and it was nice because we were on holiday, the sun was shining, the sun was going down, a glass of wine, off you go. So, can't complain, really.
Which must be nice compared to the evenings that get to get shorter and shorter. Even at 4:30 I was thinking... we need lights on, it's getting a bit wintry. But then once it gets wintry enough, then we can light the fire.
Yeah, and we can bring all the knits out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely isn't quite season for big cashmere colours. I tried to wear my Stroker pullover the one that's made out of Icelandic wool that's really stiff and really itchy.
Gorgeous though.
And I thought, well, okay, let's try this strategy. It was a kind of crisp day a few days ago, and I put it on and I just wrapped a cashmere shawl all around, kind of tucked on the inside. And I was like, yes, I can do this. 20 minutes later, I'm like, somebody get me out of it. Nope. But I can see how in colder weather, itchier, kind of rougher knits actually work.
Yeah.
When you're too warm, you can feel it very quickly, but when you're kind of colder or outside, I think it definitely has its place.
Maybe give it a month or so when the real cold weather starts to set in. You wake up to frosts and snow. Yeah.
I think this is the year of making proper garments that I like. This is the first one of this year.
Stunning.
Which I'm glad I finished. And that's all thanks to actually wanting to show it off. It's like, I need it for the yarn crawl. I need it for the podcast. I must cast this off. And it motivated me. It worked. Yeah.
It's definitely good to have motivation. I mean, you've motivated me to actually finish a couple of projects as well, especially from the last podcast where you said about like works in progress, and we set up the thread, haven't we?
Yeah, so that's really nice. I really like seeing. So Kerry's been showing all the works in progress that she's been trying to finish, and we've had a few other viewers who joined us and who kind of showed off what they're trying to finish. It's just
really interesting to see what other people are making, and kind of like the process as well. Like when you see it from just like a couple of rows to the finished article.
Yeah, I think that's what I really like about everywhere on Ravelry, where everyone shares their works in progress and being able to see the process it goes through. In fact, the spinning threads are really great for that, where somebody goes from a braid of fibre to a couple of spun bobbins, then you don't hear from them for a while because it takes all the time to finish spinning, finish plying, wash the yarn, make a swatch, because when you're spinning, you don't have the consistency of commercial yarn. You have to figure out whether it's going to actually stick to gauge from beginning to end. So you have to kind of analyze your fibre a bit, and then knit it. So it makes for quite a lengthy process. I'm almost done my unicorn jumper fibre, so not the easy knits one, but the one I'm making. I have about one little sliver left to spin, and then I'll be able to start plying. So then I ply, then I wash the whole lot, then I figure out how much yarn I actually have as a finished thing, and then I can start knitting with it.
Wow, it's such a process, isn't it?
I started this a year and a half ago.
But think of the sense of achievement you'll get when you finally finish it.
Then it'll be really ill-fitting and it'll be wrong design. Oh, it's terrifying.
It'll be fabulous.
Oh, I hope. Otherwise, it will be a tale to tell for the rest of times.
Yes, yeah, I think we've all got those stashed away somewhere, haven't we?
In fact, I don't yet want to show.
But see, this is the importance of doing a gauge swatch. Everybody, take note. I made this about 8 years ago when I first started knitting and crocheting, and I didn't at that point kind of realise how important it was to get the gauge swatch and to do proper measuring. So I ended up with a kind of, it's supposed to be a nice fitting tunic, but I stand up, you'll see it's, can't even get it on the camera, it's so big.
In the picture it's kind of hip length, isn't it?
It is,
and you've got full dress and a fairly...
It's more like a tent, really.
Aww.
But, hey, lesson learned, and at one point I will frog it and I'll get some lovely yarn backs.
So I said, make you the Hogwarts shawl, you can make me the small talk. And she finished the small talk in a time it took me to blink. It took me a bit longer to finish the Hogwarts.
That's the one with the owls.
That's one
on it, isn't
owls,
it? Yeah.
I need to remake it because the one I have, nobody else notices, but it bugs me. It's 2 rows too short. I couldn't read my knitting back then.
Does that matter on a shawl?
The body of the owl is stumpy.
Oh, okay, so
I suppose it's a stumpy owl, like me.
Maybe it's a baby owl.
Yeah, it's a baby owl. The head and the body are the same height. The body is meant to be 2 rows taller, so it's kind of a slightly stumpy owl. So that was my first attempt at cabling, my first attempt at beading, only attempt at beading. Do you like beading?
Yes. Yeah, I've done a couple of projects with beads on. But I like the effect that it gives. Just that
the process shimmery. Is a bit...
The process, because I know some people tend to thread the beads on all at once and then do it that way, but I prefer using a tiny little crochet hook and just hooking them through and doing it that way.
Yeah, that's what I've done as well, the little crochet hook. Yeah. And it works nicely. It's a bit slow when you get to the rows where you are adding the beads, but it does have quite a nice effect at the end.
It does. I mean, I've got this one here, which I use the beads on. Where is it? That one has got beads on it.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So, but it's only, I did it on the second and the bottom rows as well. So it also adds a little bit of weight as well, which is quite nice. So is this
the one that's in Theseus lace?
Yes,
in Cottage?
Theseus lace.
So...
Another massive shawl.
It was quite interesting to see. This shawl is made in, is it even the same colour?
It's steel.
Yeah, we worked out it's steel. So that's the same colour and same yarn from Eden Cottage that I'm intending to use to make a featherweight shawl. And this, I'll always say shawl instead of cardigan. I did that when I was talking about this one. I just do that every time. And even I add something to Ravelry and I call it a shawl. And I look at it and I say, it's a cardigan. Why? So this is the same yarn as the Eden Cottage Theseus lace steel featherweight cardigan that I'm planning on making. And this was that 2 skeins?
No, it's just 1 skein, and I've still got loads left over as well.
Lace,
they are very
generous.
Weight
goes so far.
It does, it really does.
Yeah.
And I think I used 3.5mm needles on it. It's either 3.25 or 3.5. I can't remember off the top of my head.
So quite large for lace weight.
Yeah.
But it's just with the beads, that looks fantastic.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah. That's why I find lace weight projects are so fascinating, in that a single skein will just take you such a long way.
Definitely.
Do you get that? Where you've got those skeins that are just so beautiful that you look at them and you say, I really should use them, but you can't bring yourself to cast it on.
I got a gorgeous one from Ali Pally last year, actually.
Is it the knit and stitching
show? Yeah. And I think it's camel and silk, and the colours, they kind of vary from, sounds a bit weird, but green to pink, but the way it's done, it's just so beautiful. And every now and then I just get it out of this little bag and just look at it and go, it's going to be so pretty. One day you're going to be beautiful. Yeah. And I'll just snaffle it back away and shut the drawer. But
see, that's why I thought it was worth having the shelves I have upstairs, where at least with the glass, it's like my no-maintenance fish tank, I think. I just have this absolutely beautiful fish tank of tropical, colourful fish. They just don't need feeding, and I can go on holiday. But I just look at them and I know, you're going to grow up to be something amazing one day. I can't bring myself to decide now.
It's not your time just yet.
One of the Skein Queen bases I love is Luminosity, and that's pure silk. It glows. It's absolutely magic. I have a silver one that just looks like liquid silver, a purple one that's kind of a rich kind of regal kind of purple, and 2 skeins of like my trademark teal. I seem to have such a huge section. I'll kind of roughly arrange them by colour. Then you get to teal, and it's like a giant speed bump where there's just loads of that colour.
Such a gorgeous colour,
though. And the best bit is I don't think I picked that one. I think that was a Skein Queen Club colour. So it was picked for me.
It picked you.
Yes, it chose me. And yeah, that Luminosity is just such a glorious, shiny silk. I can't bring myself to break those skeins up. They just sit there looking pretty.
But can you kind of like envision what it might be? Do you think it'd be a shawl, or have you got enough to do a cardigan?
In the quantities they're in, I think they would be, because they're sock weight. Even with 2 skeins, you kind of can't quite pull off a cardigan.
Yeah.
So they are likely to be shawls. And again, Kerry has made a shawl out of the Luminosity in a gold colour, and it looks like wearing pure gold around your neck. It just looks glorious. So I know they'll be in a good place one day.
Yeah.
They're just still maturing.
It's not quite ready yet.
But even I'm worried about the hedgehog fibres. They look so great in the skein.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So remains to be seen. I think one of those is going to get kind of cracked into a nice project. I think it has to be that dark one, the eel one, the black and blue and teal. One day I'll actually manage to get the colours and do them justice on camera. At the moment, every time I try to take photos or video, I just can't quite get that deep teal. Again, teal. Like that. like this cushion. Everything I pick is either lime green, like that, or teal, or together. That's about as much variety as I have. That's why I'm grateful for clubs, because clubs can choose colours for me.
Yeah, I'd like to do a club actually. I haven't never signed up to a club, but as I was saying to you earlier, I'm seriously considering doing the hedgehog lace club next time that comes round. Because after you did the podcast last week and showed those gorgeous skeins of yarn, I got straight on the website. Thank you very much.
Yes, and I think in lace that would be amazing as well. And she's got quite a few free patterns as well to accompany those yarns that just do a really, really good job. But.
Yes, because I need more yarn in my life.
We both do, don't we? Kind of lay out that incredibly long shawl. I think we need to measure it.
Shall we?
Gosh, let me go get a measuring tape. Okay,
so we need to put it on the floor maybe.
How long's my measuring tape? That's 1.5 meters of tape. Oh, I'm almost at the middle. Cut it part way. That takes us to... What's 150 plus 130?
280.
Just for fun, we thought we'd measure this. This is a 2.8 meter long shawl, just in case you wondered why we can fit it all in one screen. Yes. Took 2 measuring tapes to get this. Here's an existential question for you. Do you get bored? Do you ever just sit around huffing and puffing and somebody's fault, it's a doctor's fault, they're late, your friend's not on time and you're just bored? Or do you make the most out of that time and do something? I think in the past 10 years or so I don't remember being bored once. I remember things being boring. Accountant meetings, being stuck on the tube, things like that. Yeah, boring, but doesn't mean I had to be bored. I think when you've got, whether it's knitting or crochet or some other portable craft or even just a good book, I think you've got the ability to never be bored again. You've got to find the right kind of project. I can't imagine that I'd take, 5 balls colour work with me if I was commuting. But if you find the right project, the quick pick me up and drop me as you get to the stop type thing, I think you can have something that just helps you fill those gaps of time. And that's why I really like projects like my Trillian. So the Trillian is a 2-row project. A 2-row shawl. I've shown it to you before and I'm still working on it, but the reason I like that project is it's a travel only project. The same for my hitchhiker before it. I like having a project where you don't need to zone in and figure out where you're at. You can just sit anywhere, including Cambridge Airport, waiting for Andrew to come back from his aerobatic flight. And I can just sit here and pick up my shawl and do a few rows, drop it if somebody comes and talks to me, drop it if there's something more exciting like filming helicopters to do, and I can just have that project. So what's been your preferred, your favorite, your go-to project when you're traveling, when you're commuting, and what makes it the perfect project? What aspects of it make it just right? I like the thought of crochet. I'm not good at crochet, but I like the thought of crochet for a portable project because you've only got one stitch that you could feasibly drop, and as a result it's kind of a little bit easier to shove into your bag and not worry too much. With knitting, you kind of need to shufty your stitches along and make sure that it's not going to fall off as you put it in your bag. But the few crochet projects that I've done that are a little bit more than granny squares have been great for that. So I'd love to hear from the knitters and the crocheters what you love to carry around, what's in your travel project bag. And I suppose what makes it so much fun is that I then look at the project at the end and I can say, this is all time where otherwise I would have been sitting bored. And I never work on it when I'm home because I've got more complicated, more interesting things to work on when I'm home. But those shawls, those gifts, those goodies that either I wear or somebody else will wear were made out of all those little stolen moments of waiting in a waiting room. Right, well, I'm gonna knit and enjoy the sunshine while Andrew's up in the sky somewhere. So it's now question time. This week I've only had one question from you, and it relates to the hat that I was wearing last week, which is the Wurm hat. It's a brilliantly simple pattern that I highly recommend trying. It's a free pattern as well, great. I think I made this one in DK, and you knit about a dozen rows, purl one, and then go back on yourself. And when you sew it together, it gives you this nice big thick layer, which in winter, it's just great to have that band that just keeps your ears really lovely and warm without the top being quite as hot. And then there's that kind of beehive section where you purl a few rows, knit a few, purl a few, knit a few, which gives you that kind of nice springy effect. I've made it a few times now and I really, really like it. In fact, I've started another one. I started another one last night, but this one I'm knitting with sock weight, and the band, which you do on slightly smaller needles, is on 2.5mm needles. What a world of pain. It's been such a long time since I've used very fine needles. It just takes forever. In a whole movie, all I've made is half the ribbing. And to add to the slowness, I'm trying to learn continental, where you hold the yarn in your left hand rather than your right hand. I've been knitting English all my life, since I've learned. And I'd just like to be able to knit continental as well, especially when you've got seas of stockinette. It makes everything a bit faster, but the learning and the kind of unlearning old habits is tricky. I still don't know how to purl continental, so I'll have to probably learn that today, because I'm now at the point where I've got the inside of the edge almost done, and I need to purl one row and then knit back to the point where I'll rejoin, sew it together with this. So we shall see how learning continental purl goes today. So there you go. So that was the Wurm hat. I'll put a link in the description. Next, in answer to last week's question, it was great to hear your answers to what's your challenge, whether it's a challenge for today, for this week, for this month. I think there's a running theme where quite a lot of us are keen to finish our works in progress. And just kind of unburden ourselves from all those projects that we've started and not finished. I agree with that, and I think that's definitely true. But in most cases, we're knitting for fun. We're crocheting for fun. We're doing all those things as a hobby, as a thing for relaxation. So most of the time, those projects don't really do any harm if they sit around and don't get worked on. Unless it's a gift and somebody's getting really cold because you haven't finished the present you were making them. But otherwise, I think we don't need to stress too much about that. As for my answer to goals and things that I want to achieve, in 2014, my kind of crafty goal was to make my first pattern and publish it to Ravelry. It ended up being a free pattern, and all it was just little bunting triangles. Again, I'll include the link in the description, but it's nothing great or majestic. There was a reason for that particular pattern, in that I think 80 of us made little triangles, and I put all the bunting on string, and we sent it to Skein Queen to decorate what was to become her new home, which is a lovely barn that I hope to visit. I hope to take you there sometimes. I still haven't been in person, but I've seen some photos, and it's one of those not only yarn shop type space, but also just a really friendly, lovely, cozy space. So hopefully in the next few months that can happen and I can go visit it and take you with me. 2015, my goal was to start podcasting. So that's something I've started, and it's something that I think I'm just going to carry on, try and get better at, because I still feel like there's so many aspects that when I rewatch, I feel like I haven't quite done it how I'd envisaged. But I suppose that's like learning to draw. You start drawing and you've got that great vision in your head, and your hand just can't do it. So here's to the grand ideas in our heads actually happening. Now my next goal, it might sound a bit naff, but I want to learn my colours better. I want to become better at describing colours, having more vocabulary, more ways. We all know the colours of the rainbow, but there's so many shades of green, so many shades of blue, so many colours I'd like to be able to describe in words other than, well, that's a lovely blue. So, bizarre goal, but there you go. You wanted to know what my goal was. That's what it is. And my really short-term goal, that was to finish spinning the rainbow unicorn fibre that I had at the bottom of my cart of shame. Well, it's no longer shameful. It's empty. I have spun all of it, and I've got 3 nice fat-looking bobbins like this now, ready to be plied together. So I'm hopefully going to do that this week. Ply the 3 bobbins. They'll no doubt make some nice big chunky skeins, and once I've done that, then I can measure them, figure out how much yarn I have, and figure out whether I'll be able to make a short sleeve or long sleeve cardigan pullover. We'll see how much yarn I have and how it turns out. I am hoping I can make a pullover, but I'm starting to feel like I might not have spun quite enough fibre. And because this was a mix that I'd made on my own drum carder, I don't have any of these particular fibres or the little coloured silk noil anymore. So I wouldn't be able to just spin some more. So I'll see how much I have. I'll see what happens with it. Should be fun. Now, time for the exciting stuff. As promised, after getting 500 subscribers, I wanted to do my first giveaway. And so that's over 500 of you lovely people subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much. I've worked out that in total, that's nearly 70,000 minutes of podcast watching. I wonder how many rows of knitting or how many projects were finished while watching. It kind of blows my mind a little. I've been, the internet's nothing new to me. I probably created my first website in 1995 or something. Yet it's now, let's say 20 years since that first website. And it continues to blow me away. We can use websites like Ravelry, where there's now 5 million plus members, and just talk to people across the world. We can exchange ideas, we can help each other with patterns. It's just so wonderful, and it just keeps exciting me. I just love the potential of what can happen when you've got so many people talking to each other across the world. So thank you, really. I have had too much fun, and I hope it carries on like this. It probably won't come as a surprise to anyone that the first thing I'll give away is by Skein Queen, because so much of my stash comes from her. So I have picked a lovely, gorgeous red lustrous. So this is sock weight. Lustrous is 50% merino, 50% silk. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've made a bunch of projects in lustrous, and they are just wonderful wearables, so cozy and soft. So this is actually quite a special one, called Widow's Mill, the colour, And the reason it's so special, it was part of the club yarns. So these are small run, special edition, only for club members. And I'm going to be sad to see it go, but I think this is the one I would love to give because it's just such a bright, vivid colour. For a chance to win this lovely skein of yarn and some other little goodies, like the video and leave a comment under the video here on YouTube letting me know what you wanted to be when you grew up. When you were a kid, what was your dream? Did you want to be a doctor or a snake charmer or a professional knitter? Just let me know in the comments, and next week when I record the next podcast, I'll pick a number at random, pick a comment, and I'll announce who's won. I wish you good luck, and here's to many more giveaways in the future. So we've come to the end of the episode. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Don't forget to participate in the giveaway. I really look forward to sending that yarn out to somebody. And I shall see you next week. Bye-bye! There we go. Officially recording.